Hello, good evening, and welcome to the War Room. This is day 22 of Ukraine's war, or as I like to call it, Russia's illegal incursion into mass genocide. I don't really like to call it that. I'm just going to call it like it is. We've got a lot to get through today. I've been sort of paring back the descriptions so you don't see everything all at once. That and it takes too long to type it all out. So anyway, good evening to you all. It is March 17th, 2022. This is day 22 of this conflict. And I suspect, because of the time that I start these, that we're going to have people trickle in as usual. I did do my due diligence. All the photos and the social media posts and all these things. I'm trying to get it all together. So everything should be looking exactly as it should. And the scroller at the bottom has the latest Ministry of Defense updates for casualty reports for them dirty Russians. And man, I just, the victors raised their numbers, the losers watered down the numbers, and the truth is somewhere in between. But man, the disparity of numbers is quite a lot. But we're going to go with the Ministry of Defense's numbers because they look good and it's a great morale booster for the people fighting for the Ukraine, especially after they have to mourn the loss of a icon of a soldier. She was a mother of 12, a doctor, and she was 48 years old, and she passed on. She was killed in combat. We will get into that today. Just before the show started, I received a report that actress Oksana Shvets also was killed in a rocket attack today. She was, I believe, 67, but she was a pretty well-known actress in Ukraine, and she was living in Kyiv, and her civilian residence was attacked by rockets, Russian rockets, from Russian planes. You know, those things that apparently the Pentagon says Ukraine doesn't need any more of because it'll escalate things with Russia. And other people continue to say stupid things like, because jets are an offensive weapon, but Tomahawks and S-300s and manpads are a defensive weapon. But then you have actual generals who may know what the hell they're talking about, like Keith Kellogg, saying that that's the dumbest thing he's ever heard because they're not the ones on the offensive. They're defending their homeland, so every single thing they do is defensive. And any idiot like Jen Psaki who says it isn't should probably have their head examined. Anyway, I'm going to try to refrain from being too ranty today. It's just, I have no tolerance for stupid people, and apparently there's a bunch of them in Washington. So I decided to have a little fun today, and I photoshopped a couple of the captions, or photos, and I did that to sort of break the tension of the situation, and to just poke fun at the people that they actually include. And it's the same guy twice, so it's not that big of a deal. Anyway, like I said, we've got a lot to get through today. Every time I do this show, I sit there and think, is anybody watching this? Is this of any use to anybody? Why do I keep doing it? Why do I feel like this is so important to me, even though I don't have any vested interest in that country nor its people? But I feel like it's very important just because I'm living through a historical event. You know, when 9/11 happened, I said the same thing. I was a college kid back then, and I said, this is going to be in the history books in 20 years, and sure as shit it is. And now we've got this, and I'm telling people, 20 years from now, you're going to bounce your kid or your grandkid off your knee, and it's going to be in their history book when they ask you to help with their homework. These are the kind of events that are once in a lifetime. Well, war, you hope, is never in your lifetime. But historical events, this gross in scale is once in a lifetime. And this may go down in history as World War III. We don't quite know that yet. Now, the Ukrainian president, Vladimir Zelensky, he's pretty convinced that this is because of how many nations are involved. It's just they're not involved in theater. But we are a global society with a global economy and social media that brought the world down to size in terms of scale. So it's very hard to not at least consider the fact that this is already a world war, because everybody is involved in some form or fashion, whether it's they're being informed of what's going on and just reacting to it, or people like me who just try to timeline the events and then make them in a nice, easily digestible form, or if you're that poor guy stuck there fighting it out with dirty Slav bastards who invaded your country. It's, it takes all kinds. So anyway, I'd like to go ahead and say good evening to those who have been trickling in. So it looks like I do have Shady Hill Homestead. I have Terry Scherer, I've got PNW Woods, I've got the finest of apes, and I've got Al W. So good evening to all of you. And I suspect more of you will trickle in. One thing I would like to point out is we won't be seeing Mikhail Naistreitsky for a few days, but he has a good reason. He's actually 2.5 hours away from home, and he's been attending the Palmetto State Armory, the Gathering. I think that's what they call it. When he left, I only sent him with one task, and that task was, please find out if they're going to have any more RPK build kits anytime soon. Because if they don't, and I have to wait 4 or 5 months, then I'm going to go ahead and spend the money I've been putting away for a Polish AK. Because why not? It's my money. Good evening to you, Mr. Knives. Have you ever got off your butt and figured out how to make Discord work? Because I'd love to have you as a panelist someday. Be nice to get to catch up with you. Anyway, let me go ahead and start introducing the rest of my panel since Mike won't be here. I do have my college student. He did... I'm going to just preface this with a story, but let me bring him in here real quick. This is my rancher. He's out on the west coast. This is Jaime Zaporozhizhia, also known as Zorro 117 from Gun Channels of old. He is a rancher, he is a gun owner, and he is a Californian. 2 out of those 3 things make sense. Anyway, he had an interesting event today. Actually, he had a pig, and he named him Putin, and Putin got put down today, and we're all going to enjoy fatback and bacon and Boston butt roast soon. So, good evening to you. I noticed you were muted before I pulled you in, so you might not actually be at your mic just right now, but anyway, I just thought it'd be funny to tell you that. And it looks like Mr. Knife still doesn't know how to make Discord work, even though it's made simple enough for 5-year-olds. Let's bring in my next panelist. He is my tradesman up near the New England area, and kind of an AK dude, and for some reason everything has to be green. But this is Scottish Naya, also known as Scott P79. You've probably seen him at Gun Channels or even on Instagram or YouTube. He does have a YouTube channel. Just time to record things is not always available. So good evening to you.
Evening.
And I'm going to go ahead and just bring in my last 2 panelists because I don't have big intros for them. But I also have a Mr. FNH who is out in Missouri. And I've got a Desert Deagleton. So, good evening to all of you. We're all here. It's great. You missed me making fun of all the panelists earlier, or the aw. He's like, no. He was like, no, I don't want to do this. So anyway, you missed me like making fun of the YouTube side chat earlier. Good evening to you, Mr. Mad Sexy. Good that you would make it before it ended this time, because I know you've been trying to get in, so that's cool. All right, so it's gonna be 2 hours. I already know this. Let's just get to the getting because I don't have a long intro this time. It's just we got to get going because we have a ton of stuff to get through, and I never have a chance to do anything I want to do after work now. So if I can get this done in 2 hours, I'll have like 20 minutes before I have to force myself to go to bed. Let's get started though. First story today. Oh, and before I start the stories, I do want to tell you that the last story we had yesterday was pretty horrible, and I do have two updates on it, but we still are awaiting more information because it's not all the information that we need. We need more, right? So anyway, first story I've got for you actually takes place after the breaking news that I had last night. So it moves on a little bit. Now, man, I gotta have a rant just for a split second. I have a friend who keeps trying to send me private messages as soon as I start doing the show. And it's like, I keep telling him, I'm like, just join the show and hang out here instead of PMing me where I can't answer you for 2 hours. Whatever. He'll figure it out eventually. Maybe if I tie it to a beer and, like, club him over the head with it, he'll figure it out. Alright, so the first story starts at 12:42 a.m. my time, which is dawn. It's dawn in Ukraine, 7:42. And the story goes, despite fears that China may help Russia avoid economic sanctions and may even provide military support to Russian President Vladimir Putin's regime, the Chinese ambassador to Ukraine told officials in the western city of Lviv this week that his country will support Ukraine both economically and politically. Quote, "We will always respect your state. We will develop..." Did you fall asleep already?
No.
Okay. We will always respect your state. We will develop relations on the basis of equality and mutual benefit. We will respect the path chosen by Ukrainians because this is a sovereign right of every nation. This came from Fan Shanggong, who relocated with the Chinese embassy from Kyiv to Lviv after Russian forces invaded on February 24th. In this situation, which you have now, we will act responsibly. We've seen how great the unity of the Ukrainian people is, and that means its strength. Does that really rub off to you as a PR stunt? You gotta remember, this dude's in bed with Putin right before the Olympics. And during the Olympics, he has another meeting with him and he says, don't attack Ukraine until after the Olympics. So he does. And now all of a sudden, this whole event has gone sideways. And now China's like, ooh, now we know what the world will do to us economically if we go after Taiwan. Now I can't call on Russia to help me militarily because they look like amateur hour at a Boy Scout, like boxing match or something. So now they realize that the West has put Russia in its place, and China can't even show its face on that level yet. So what do? Hey, Ukraine, buddy! We're gonna support you. Yeah, we think you guys are great. Yeah, don't forget us. Thanks. Okay, thanks, bye. That's basically what I'm looking at. You can't trust them. You can't trust them as far as you can throw them. Anyway, let's move on. First story I've got with pictures. We got a lot of pictures today, too. It starts with this. Don't worry, I'll translate it for you. This was at 7:42, so this is also the exact same time as the first story. They, like, sort of all hit it once. 3 injured, 1 dead in Kyiv after a downed missile hits a building. Translation. That's the translation for this. No, but I can move it closer to my face. Actually, if I do that, then it's too loud in my own ears. Are you sure you're not, like, you can't turn up your gain just a hair? I don't know. If anyone else can't hear me, just go ahead and say so. I can fix it. Anyway, the translation for this says, a fire broke out in Darnytsky district of Kyiv after the remains of a downed missile struck a high-rise building. This was according to preliminary information that 30 people were evacuated, 3 of which were injured, 1 which died. So this is sort of like Scuds versus Patriots. Patriot takes out Scud, chunk of Scud hits building, building hurts 30 people, kills 1. Sound about right? He's not falling asleep, don't forget that.
No, I am not.
Your sinuses are fucked.
Yeah, pretty much.
Alright. Oh, I got my new bag of Fisherman's Friends. That's why I'm munching on them right now. You should probably get a couple of those too now. Alright, fine. Jesus, let me turn this up a little more. Okay, that's as far as I can take it, so... without sticking the mic in my mouth. Anyway, let's move on. That's the down missile. Alright, so the next story... I didn't really want to make this like a human interest story, but this woman's like a local hero. So, we're going to go with this. Ukrainian soldier Olga Semidyanova, a Mother Heroine Awarded recipient, has died in battle. This came from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Olga Semidyanova was a mother of 12 children, 6 of which she had adopted. The medic had served in the military since 2014 and was killed on the border between Donetsk and Zaporizhzhia. That's a 48-year-old woman. She had 6 kids of her own. If Gunpowder Beauty was here, she would comment on how much having a child takes out on your body as a woman, and then the recovery afterwards. She's had 6, and then she adopted 6 more orphans. And she was a doctor. And she was given the Mother Heroine Award, which is there was a German award. Yes, this is World War II, right? Germany had an award for the mothers of soldiers in Nazi Germany. I forgot what it was called, like the Golden Cross Award or something like that. Well, she is a defender of her country, and a humanitarian, and a doctor, and an adopter of 6 kids on top of her 6 kids, and a fighter. So she got a similar award. Like, you are a badass, you are recognized by the nation. Well, she died. I saw that picture and it reminded me of another, I can't remember her name right off the top of my head, but there was a Russian female tanker. Let me see if I can pull up her name real quick. Ah, that's what it was. Her name was Alexandra Shamushenko. And she was actually quite good looking too. Anyway, I kind of got the same story. What's that?
I was waiting for that.
Oh, really? No, she was good looking. Matter of fact, she even teased a soldier that she rescued and saved, and then she kept looking at him saying, "So are you in love with me now?" And he was, and she was like, "Sorry, I have a husband." What he didn't know is her husband was killed by the Germans, which forced her to want to fight back. So she joined the Russian army and became a T-34 tank commander and started laying waste to Germans. Anyway, she died because she got run over by one of her own people in another T-34 in the middle of the night because they couldn't see her. Oops. Anyway, I saw this woman.
Hot dog down the hallway.
Yeah, I saw this woman here and I thought, well, it's kind of a similar situation, like female badass, right? Anyway, it's just when I saw her picture, that's the first person I thought of was Shamushenko. She's on the Wikipedias. If you just type in like Russian World War II female tanker, it's like she's the first one that pops up. Her story is really cool. Anyway, let's move on. Do I have a picture for this? Because it's a long story. Yes, it is. Okay. So here. Now, this photo was taken 2 days ago, before the bomb hit the theater. And what I've highlighted for you is stones that were placed in the parking lots so aerial pilots can see it and not attack it. Ukrainian officials in the besieged city. Oh, by the way, this story came out at about 10 to 11 Ukrainian time. Ukrainian officials in the besieged city of Mariupol claimed that Russian forces bombed a theater in which thousands had taken refuge, even though satellite footage clearly shows the word children in Russian written on the ground near the theater. Another horrendous war crime in Mariupol came from Dmytro Kuleba. He's the Ukraine's foreign affairs minister. You're going to hear a lot from him. You probably have already for the last 21 days, but he's a very vocal guy. Massive Russian attack on the drama theater where hundreds of innocent civilians were hiding. The building is completely ruined. Russians could not have known this was a civilian. Could have not known that this was a civilian shelter. Save Mariupol. Stop Russian war crimes. Mariupol's deputy mayor, Sergei Orlov, told the BBC that between 1,000 to 1,200 people had sought refuge in that building. On the 16th of March, Russian Air Force dropped a powerful bomb on the building of the drama theater in Mariupol. This came, again, from the Ukrainian Ministry of Foreign Affairs. The theater building served as a shelter for hundreds of Mariupol residents who had lost their homes as a result of Russian armed forces bombing and shelling the city. The bomb strike demolished the central part of the theater building, causing large numbers of people to be buried under the debris. The assessment of the exact number of persons affected is currently impossible due to ongoing shelling. By delivering a purposeful bomb attack to a place of mass gathering, Russia has committed yet another war crime, the Ukrainian ministry warned. A crime that was concurrent with the president of the International Court of Justice proclaiming the ruling that obligates Russia to stop all warfare in the territory of Ukraine immediately. Sergei Taruda, a Ukrainian government official in Mariupol, reported that the shelter underneath the theater was not destroyed and that there are survivors. Now, yesterday I told you that we didn't have numbers. We technically still don't, but at least now we know more details about the building and what's underneath it. Mariupol's bomb shelter of the drama theater, which was bombed by the invaders yesterday, survived, and as the debris began to be pulled away, people began to come out. It remains unclear how many people were sheltering and how many survived. Now, I've got another update for this in another story, but I'm going to have to remind myself to tell you the rest of it because I only wrote the 2 stories. There's actually 3. But anyway, they did this deliberately. And by putting that marking on both sides of the building, there's no doubt that you couldn't tell what that was. They did it in their own language, so it can't be mistaken. And if a satellite can pick it up, a plane flying at less than 20,000 feet should be able to pick it up easily. So let's move on. This next story... Oh, wait, never mind. There's 2 other stories. All right, so it is now 4:51 a.m. my time, and that makes it 2:51 p.m. in Uzbekistan. And you're probably wondering, what the hell? That's actually further away from Ukraine. Uzbek Foreign Minister Abdul Aziz Kamilov said during a session of the Senate that his country does not and will not recognize any breakaway Ukrainian republics. Now, that's not a bad thing. What he's saying is he's not going to recognize any Russian breakaway republics coming out of the Ukraine mainland. Uzbekistan is committed to finding a peaceful solution to the situation and resolving the conflict through diplomatic means. To do this, first of all, hostilities and violence must immediately be stopped. Thank you, Captain Obvious. Based on national interests, Uzbekistan will continue mutual beneficial cooperation with both countries, but we will not recognize Donetsk and Luhansk as separate republics. Now, there's a thing that most of the Istans are usually either satellite states of Russia or bitter enemies to Russia. Uzbekistan is kind of a, what are you again? I think it's become pretty clear what they are now. They're an ally to Ukraine, in a way, at least geopolitically. So, moving right along. This next story kind of is annoying. It kind of pisses me off too. And no, this is not the Mark Levin that I refer to typically, but this is Mark D. Levin, or Levine. And this story was titled New York City, Keeping It Classy. 400 used bulletproof vests that were collected from donations for the people of Ukraine have been stolen in New York City, according to reports. The vests were removed from a building in the East Village neighborhood of Manhattan sometime overnight between Tuesday and Wednesday. It's despicable that someone would break into a building to steal supplies and materials intended to aid those affected by this humanitarian crisis. This came from Vicky DiStefano. She was a spokesperson for Suffolk County Sheriff's Office. They made the largest donation of the vests for this, you wouldn't call it a fundraiser, but they made the biggest donation of the vests. Security camera footage from next door business showed 3 vans pulling up outside the building, one after another, with men in hoods calmly and casually carrying out boxes believed to be containing the vests and loading them into vehicles, then simply driving away. No alarms, huh? The vests were intended to be sent to medical workers and humanitarian aid volunteers in Ukraine. Manhattan Borough President Mark Levine, I'm going to say Levine, quickly launched an effort to raise funds to replace the stolen vests. The donated items were among many tactical gear items being collected around the U.S. as American law enforcement agencies and other groups step up to aid Ukraine. Someone at the Manhattan location realized the items were missing shortly after 9 a.m. and called police. The property's entrance gate and doors were found open. Investigating police officers determined that the building had been forcibly entered. The vests had been stored in an area that was, quote, visible to the public, and many had been donated by the Suffolk County Sheriff's Office in the Long Island suburbs east of the city. Sheriff's Office usually replaces its vest every 5 years of use, or usually after 5 years of use, even though they typically remain in good working condition. Right, because, if you're not getting shot at, the material's not compromised, but it will degrade over time, especially if you wear it and sweat through it and get it wet and all that other stuff. So they usually certify them for 5 years and then off they go for surplus. Anyway, good job, New York. Way to keep things real classy.
That was an inside job.
You think so? Because,
Yeah.
it did seem too calm, right?
Yeah,
They
I
knew
think that was
exactly what
an
they were
inside job.
going for.
They knew where it was.
Yep.
They walked right in. There was no alarm. Nobody stopped them. And they very calmly drove off like nothing happened.
Mm-hmm.
No cameras, no alarm.
There was a camera next door.
Yeah, next door though.
Mm-hmm. That building
Looks
didn't really
weird.
look like a depository of some sort either, Anyway, I actually had a story about what that building was. It was some sort of, it wasn't like a embassy or anything, but it had like a diplomatic thing with Ukraine. So the people in the area must have known what it was.
Yeah.
All right, moving along. So this is the other theater story I was talking about. That's what's left of it, by the way. That's the whole middle, and everything else around it collapsed. Okay, so 12:57 p.m. Ukrainian time, so it's already post-lunch, middle of the day. People are starting to really, fathom what's going on and seeing it for themselves. Ukraine Parliament member Sergei Taruta said Thursday that people are coming out alive after the theater in the besieged eastern city of Mariupol was severely damaged. You're going to hear some stuff repeated here. After an awful night of not knowing, we finally have good news from Mariupol on the morning of the 22nd day of the war. The bomb shelter of the theater was able to hold. It's like a basement type thing. The rubble is beginning to get cleared, Taruta wrote on his Facebook page. However, Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky's office said Russia has carried out further airstrikes on Mariupol this morning. There were no immediate reports of casualties. People are escaping from Mariupol by themselves using their own transport, adding that the risk of death still remains high because Russian forces previously firing on civilians continue to do so. So, Daylight came. They started clearing rubble. They're still getting shelled at and shot at, and there's still jets overhead, and they're still doing their work. And people were starting to come out. The problem is later on in the day, they started noticing body parts. Lots of them. Everywhere. And that's when things started getting really panicky. The people in the bomb shelters mostly survived. The people who were taking refuge in the building above the bomb shelter, well, they're going to have to start counting body parts now. And that's the part that sucks, because even right now, as of 9 o'clock Central Time, there's no body count. They're putting together pieces. They're looking for skulls, essentially. Because what else can you find? Hip bones, right? You have to find things that there's only one of in a human body. Hip bones, skulls. You can't do arms, you can't do legs, you can't do feet or hands. Maybe torsos, maybe. But that's the kind of meat grinder work that these poor guys have to do. Many of them are their own fellow, neighbors and friends and family. People are missing. They might be in there still. Somebody might still be alive in all that mess. Problem is they can only work for a couple hours a day, and at nighttime, air operations from the Russians keep them grounded, and, curfews and everything like that. So, it's a disgustingly ugly situation. We're not going to get full numbers for that for probably days. But it's gross, because we saw they marked the building, and apparently marking the building is what signed their death warrant. We talked about this in the lobby earlier today. For those of you who still don't know or still haven't done it, we host a lobby here every day, weekdays at least. It's called the Lobby for Working Stiffs. Anyone's welcome to come in and, just shoot the shit with us. We talk about whatever and whenever and everything all day. We talked about this story. And, the only solution I can think of is they need to start marking the shelters as military bases, because apparently the Russians only are attacking civilian locations with such fervor, and they're not really bothering with the military installations, because that's not their goal. Their goal is to shock and awe and demoralize the people, get them to surrender, break their spirit. So start painting the buildings in camo or something, because then they'll just pass right by it going, nope, not enough civilians, and just go on to the next place. I'm not serious, but we did talk about that in hyperbole. Alright, let's move on. So about an hour later, the United Kingdom's Ministry of Defense said Thursday that Russia's invasion of Ukraine is slowing down, as Russian forces have made minimal progress on land, sea, or air in recent days as they continue to suffer heavy losses. Sidebar. They say this, but the Black Sea Fleet of the Russian Navy pounded the ever-living hell out of the outskirts of Odessa today. Whether or not they were successful is yet to be seen. Apparently, the Ukrainian Navy doesn't have submarines, because a Black Sea fleet that's been sitting more or less at anchor off the coast of Odessa should have been easy pickings. I happen to know, and Scott knew this, that there was a sea wolf in the area of the Black Sea. But that's an escalation. We can't do that.
Black Sea technically is
international waters, I get it.
International waters.
But you have to be 10 miles off the coast of the thing for international waters. Besides, on top of that,
10 miles wide.
Well, yeah, I'm just saying, the other thing is if you torpedo their ships and then they sink and then they check their ships and they find the remnants of Mark 48 torpedoes and ad caps, they're going to be like, hey, wait a minute. So, but then again,
I'm sure we've got a few Russian torpedoes laying around.
Just telling you, plausible deniability, right? I mean, I saw the end of Hunt for Red October. You mean to tell me you lost another Russian submarine? Yeah. Right? Yeah, that kind of thing.
Call the Pepsi name.
Bit of breaking news, but
go ahead.
Apparently, the Chinese media has started showing actual video footage of what the Russians are doing in Ukraine. You know what that means?
Yeah. Yeah. International
China
court's
don't
gonna
want
have a field day.
no. Oh no, China don't want no part of being tied to Russia at this point.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think that other story I mentioned probably reinforces your story for sure. Like, they don't want this anymore. I think Xi Jinping is looking at this going, shit, I jumped in
Mm-hmm.
bed with the wrong army. I think he finally realizes that, which is good because
It's
ultimately,
going to cut off a lot of supplies going to Russia.
well, it's not that. It's just I think this is a very specific moment in history. Like this is gonna sound so cliche, and I'm sorry, okay, but I was a big fan of the movie Patton, and there was a speech he gave, or like just a dialogue he had, and he said, "This is a specific moment in time in history. This will only happen once, and the universe will spin off in various directions, and I have to seize this moment and take this opportunity because it'll never come back again." Right? Like he was like, "I have exactly the right instruments at precisely the right time and precisely the right moment of history, and this too will pass quickly." Right? Remember that speech? And then he was pissed off and he was like, "I will fulfill my destiny." That whole thing? That's that whole speech, right? Well, this is a moment in history right now. Right now. Like, all of you, this whole show is to get you to think. Imagine if NATO got involved in this soon, and this doesn't stop at Ukraine. Because the fact of the matter is Vladimir Putin cannot be allowed to live after this, which means somebody's got to go in and get him, which means you have to go into Moscow. You have to. You have to. The people in Russia do not have a Second Amendment. They do not have the ability to stand up to their government and take them down and grab him and pull him out and Il Duce his ass. Okay? They can't do that. Say this goes to that point and we catch him and we get him and he's tried and he's put at the end of a rope, as he should be, publicly on world TV. So nobody forgets this moment, because this will be the moment in history where Russia will never, ever, ever be a socialist nation for eternity, because he's the last remnant of the Cold War that's got to go. Nobody younger, nobody older than 25. Sorry, maybe I didn't say that right. Maybe nobody younger than 25. They don't care about their old history. None of them. They weren't born into it. They were born into Starbucks, McDonald's, Burger King, Domino's Pizza, Papa John's. That's what they were born into. They were born into capitalism. Their government was a little overbearing, yes, but if they kept their head down and they just lived their life, they got to go to raves, they got to snort cocaine off a hooker's ass, they got to, do whatever. They got to drift a lot if they wanted to, right? As long as they didn't make too big of a scene and get caught by Oman or Spetsnaz or Sober or any of those guys. If you knock the Russians out of geopolitics as a socialist state for the rest of eternity, that only leaves China and North Korea and Venezuela. The latter two don't count for shit, do they, in terms of geopolitical danger? China, on the other hand, what they've done today is basically say, "Oh shit, let's just go ahead and watch what happens. Let's let that house burn to the ground, and we will just sort of retract into our shell and hope that the rest of the world doesn't realize that we are the last bastion of communist bullshit left on Earth that poses a threat to the world."
Well,
Maybe.
North Korea does have a couple nukes.
Doesn't fucking matter. They're just a China puppet. Let's be honest.
True.
If Imagine if Russia was actually, if they had beaten down Ukraine and taken it already, okay? If they took it, China would have been emboldened. They would have took out Taiwan already. They would have started attacking it, right? They would have just marched into North Korea and go, "You see all this? We control this now." And little Kim would stand up going, "Wait a minute, I thought you were my ally." And they would just say,
Oh,
"Sit your fat ass down and keep drinking your Johnny Walker. We're in control for now. Do not question us." And he would go, "You don't have to be so mean about it."
no, it's entirely possible that Winnie the Pooh knew the Russians would screw the Pooh
Maybe.
and said, yeah, we'll back you, and just hung them out to dry because
You
they just got rid of a major rival.
That is possible because what they ended up doing is they're going to strip Russia of all of its export resources for pennies on the dollar. So now Russia won't have
Mm-hmm.
any resources and they'll be penniless because they're selling for pennies on the dollar out of desperation. That makes China a mega power like shift. But then the world will finally turn its eye of Sauron and go, "Yeah, Russia's a non-factor. They're neutered. It's not the people's fault. It's just
Next,
that one prick in his little military." And then they would look over at China and go, "But you, on the other hand, we got our eye on you." But right now, they're doing the PR thing, right? They're backing off. They're saying the right things to keep us from paying attention to them. They're
yep.
saying, we support Ukraine financially and politically. This was wrong. Russians are bad. I'm not falling for it. Are you? Are any of you watching this falling for that shit? I hope not.
No.
Think for yourselves. Think that this is the moment that Russia could finally be knocked out of geopolitical communism forever. Think of that possibility, and you will start to understand why Putin is so desperate to hang on to it now. Because that's what crazy people do. Okay, tangent over. I don't want to turn it into a rant. Like, I'm trying really hard not to get too animated. Okay, so let's move on. Finish the story, I guess. Ukrainian resistance remains staunch and well coordinated. The vast majority of Ukrainian territory, including all major cities, continue to remain in Ukrainian hands. Ukraine's presidential office also reported artillery and airstrikes around the country overnight, including in the Kalinivka and Brovary suburbs of the capital, Kyiv. I'm getting better at reading Cyrillic. It said fighting continues as Russian forces try to enter the Ukraine city of Mykolaiv in the south, and that there was an artillery barrage through the night in the eastern town of hang on, I haven't had to say this one before. Avdiivka. Yeah, Avdiivka. I've never had to say that before. It had a character in there that I didn't recognize. So, moving on. Sorry about the tangent, guys. It's just when I get to that one point, it led me to something that I had thought about for days that I wanted to share with you all. Also, around the same time, we got another update, and this comes with this picture. That's just a map of current NATO nations before the Cold War, the ones who joined after the Cold War, and the ones trying to join NATO, which might need to be updated because it's possible Ukraine might retract their request. I hope not, but it's a possibility. Lithuania, on Thursday, today, has become the third NATO member country to call for the establishment of a no-fly zone over Ukraine, with its parliament unanimously adopting a resolution demanding the measure. They took a page right out of NATO's playbook. NATO gets together, they serve a continental breakfast, they all sit down and they shake hands and they start playing catch up with one another and they go, "We got to do something. We have to look busy. What are we going to do?" And somebody goes, "I've got an idea. Let's hold a vote." And they're like, "Okay, what for?" "We should hold a vote to see if we all agree that we're going to publicly say that Russia is bad." And they go, Jens Stoltenberg goes, "That's brilliant. Let's do it." So he calls for a vote. They take the vote. They count the poll. They poll the numbers, and they go, "Great, it's passed. We have now made a resolution that says Russia's bad." That's what they do at NATO. And then when they're done, they're like, "What's for lunch?" That's what they do. That's like 90% of what they do. Resolutions to say public things. Wow. Fantastic. Well, Lithuania just did that too, within their own country. But what makes it interesting is their entire parliament unanimously said yes to this. So that's cool because it shows that they have solidarity. It also shows that they're the third NATO nation, not the United States, demanding this. This gets better. Okay, so the resolution, according to the AP, said that a no-fly zone would allow United Nations peacekeepers to ensure the security of humanitarian corridors and the safety of Ukraine's nuclear power plants and nuclear waste storage facilities. Prime Minister Janez Janša of Slovenia also has publicly called for a no-fly zone, and Estonia's parliament has urged its 29 NATO members to consider the same. So you have Estonia, Slovenia, and Lithuania. That's 3. However, critics of the idea have been warning that enacting such a measure would likely escalate Russia's war with Ukraine. NATO Security General Jens Stoltenberg said Wednesday, "This can become even worse if NATO takes actions that actually turn this into a full-fledged war between NATO and Russia." Now, let me get this straight. Jens Stoltenberg is Neville Chamberlain. And right now, what he's doing is he's trying to keep NATO, his country, his League of Nations basically, out of it. But like Neville Chamberlain, he's going to realize that the person he's trying to appease doesn't care and will continue. If he takes Ukraine, it's not going to stop. It's going to move into Moldova. It's going to move into Slovenia. It's going to move into Georgia again. It's going to go into the Baltic states that are NATO nations because he'll become so emboldened by his gains and his experience that all his infantry learned in Air Force that he's just going to keep pushing. And then Stoltenberg's going to go, "Oh shit, I screwed up." And then we're going to have a new Winston Churchill take over and straighten it out. But here's the good thing. You got 3 nations right now that want this. It's sort of like what happened with constitutional carry in this country in the last 10 years. A couple of states started making the push after years of nobody getting it. And that was the snowflake that started the avalanche that turned into now 22 states with constitutional carry in the United States. You have 3 NATO nations demanding a no-fly zone. Imagine if 3 more start saying that in a week from now, and 3 more a week from then. That's the idea. Here's the best part. This plays right into Joe Biden's desire to not stick his neck out for this. So, follow me here. Let's say there's 9 nations in NATO that all surround Ukraine. Let's go with Croatia, Slovenia, Slovakia, Romania, Lithuania, and Estonia. Maybe Bulgaria, okay? I'm not even going to put Poland in the mix yet. Let's just take those guys. Then let's take, like, I don't know, Greece and Turkey, and maybe even, No, let's just go with those. Okay, so now you got the backing of even post Cold or pre-Cold War nations involved, right? They all call for a no-fly zone. Now you've got, let's say, 8 nations all wanting it. And you can say, as Joe Biden, you can say, "Cool, okay, yeah, that's a great idea. You guys should go do that. Your 8 nations can go put your aircraft in the air over Ukraine and protect it. And if you need me, give me a call. If you run out of your planes and you need to buy more F-16s from us to replace the ones you're losing enforcing that no-fly zone, give me a call. You see, that's the kind of people we are. Capitalists. And if you get enough of those folks who, in administrations past, we would criticize NATO for not investing their resources and forcing us to use all of ours to get the ball rolling, it's not necessarily a terrible idea, is it? We're just biding our time to see how many more NATO nations will step forward first. That's what leading from behind looks like. Right now, Biden's just cowering like a bitch. But I just gave you a shining example of how leading from behind actually looks. So when these guys ask for this, we should encourage it. We should just be like, yeah, good on you guys. How about you, Latvia? How about you, Croatia? How about you, Montenegro? Go for it. Jump in. It's good that you want to be involved. You want to be a world player? Put on your big boy pants and come play. That's what they're doing. That's great. We should support that. The more of them that do it, the less of us have to go. It's not our fight. That's what people keep telling us. They're proving that they can do it without us. That'd be fine. They need planes, we'll sell you planes. Bet you didn't expect me to have that stance today. Alright, let's move on. It's now 7 a.m. Daylight's creeping into my window. I've got 9 dogs. The fox hunt's begun. I can't get back to sleep. It's 2 o'clock in Belarus, though. Yep. Do I have a picture for you? Yes. This interesting lady, creature, person. I was going to say something else more flattering, but, you know. No, I have to shake my incubus thing. Anyway, this is what's at stake in Ukraine. According to a woman helping lead the fight for freedom of her own country, Belarus. Wait a minute, didn't Belarus send a bunch of troops in to attack Ukraine? Yes. Don't they have a puppet go? Yes. But it's a split country, just like Georgia is. So, it was bad enough for those who felt their election was stolen in 2020 and who saw their uprisings crushed. Now many Belarusians worry their country may be dragged directly into Russia's war with Ukraine. Russian troops may be using her country as a staging ground for attacking Ukraine. But opposition leader, you're going to love this because I got the name already, Sviatlana Tsikhanovskaya. See, that was easy. Says she is working behind the scenes to make sure Belarusian troops don't join the battle. Right after the war started, we launched a huge program to show the truth about the situation in Ukraine, because on state TV, propaganda TV, they don't show anything about the war. We started to explain to our soldiers, our military officers, that people are dying there. Tsikhanovskaya tells, in her interview. We are also communicating with the mothers of soldiers, explaining to them the situation. She says that many men of recruitment age have simply fled Belarus to avoid possible deployment in Ukraine. She says her people have told others that in the event Belarusian men are forced to go to Ukraine one day, they should switch sides on the ground and fight with the Ukrainians. Good night, FNH.
Good night, buddy.
Tsikhanovskaya believes that while the KGB forms a tight core around Belarusian President Alexander Lukashenko, the military is far less loyal. Lukashenko is one of Russian President Vladimir Putin's few allies at this point, the other part of his coalition waging war on Ukraine. Tsikhanovskaya explains why she believes he is a danger not only to his own people in Ukraine, but also to the world. Dictators are always dangerous because they're unpredictable. They don't respect any international laws. They don't even respect diplomacy. She's pushing for a coup in Belarus. So is the Georgians. Now, I don't know if they have the same disarmament clause like Russia has, but if they don't, then they stand a good chance to succeed. Anyway, it'd be cool. The reason I wanted to post that story is because we hear what belligerent nations are involved in this, but then you start to see stories like this where it's like, wait a minute, that's a puppet government, and they don't want it anymore, and they're being used like pawns, and this lady's trying to stop it. The same thing happened to Ukraine up to 2014. That's when they got rid of their puppet government. So it's basically Diet Ukraine in Belarus right now. It's also the same thing in Georgia, though, too. They're 50-50 split. Yeah, there's Soviet puppet governments in there, but there's a big resistance in there, too. Anyway, moving on. This is a real short bit here. I just want to give you the updated numbers, but at 3:06 p.m., or sorry, 3:06 p.m. Ukrainian time, the United Nations released a new update. Now, the reason I'm bringing this up is because I gave you some statistics about the refugees leaving the country and how it was accelerating at a rapid rate. Well, this is how rapid it's gotten. It was 3 million yesterday. 7 hours later, the number got updated to 3.2 million. 200,000 in 7 hours. The original figures when this all kicked off was as many as 4 million Ukrainians were going to flee the country. 3.2 already. 200,000 in 7 hours. That was at 3 o'clock Ukrainian time. That was 8 a.m. 13 hours ago my time. Let's just assume that another 200,000, maybe 250,000, maybe 300,000. That means we're up to 3.5 million. Tomorrow it could be 4 million. A week from now, 7 million. We don't know, but we do know it's outpacing the statistics that eggheads in the Pentagon even predicted. It has already outpaced the speed of refugees leaving countries. It's exceeded World War II statistics already. That's how serious this is. World War II, everyone thinks, like, they crack open a history book and they see the pictures and they're like, wow, that's really bad. And then they hear about this thing in Ukraine, they just flip the channel because they don't think, nothing could be as bad as World War II. This has exceeded it. This involves nuclear weapons. This involves nuclear power plants being held hostage. This involves chemical and biological weapons agents possibly being used when little Vladdy gets a little frustrated because he's not getting the gains he wants, and this is how he clears out cities. Look no further than Aleppo. Look no further than Chechnya. Look no further than Georgia and South Ossetia. This is what he does. It's not happening fast enough. Release the chemical weapons. There we go. That got it done in time. That's the kind of prick we're dealing with. Anyway, it's 3.2 million now. Tomorrow, I'm sure I'll have a much more sobering statistic. Anyway, about a minute later. This picture sucks too. I'm sorry for it, but you have to see it. I call this photo the ghosts of Chernihiv. As you can see, it's burning, and there's not much left standing. Vyacheslav Chaus, the regional governor of the Chernihiv region, said Thursday that the northern Ukrainian city has suffered colossal losses and destruction as a result of the Russian military's bombardment. Speaking to Ukrainian television, Chaus said 53 bodies of those killed by the Russian aggressors from the ground or from the air have been delivered to morgues in Chernihiv in the past 24 hours, according to the Associated Press. Chernihiv, which has a population of about 280,000, was the site Wednesday where the U.S. Embassy in Kyiv said Russian forces shot and killed 10 people standing in line just for bread. I showed you that photo yesterday too. Unfortunately, it was blurred out. Maybe fortunate if you have a weak constitution. The city has never seen or known such nightmarish, colossal losses and destruction on a scale such as this. That's not a city anymore, is it? That's a ruin. That dot in the middle of that intersection was the town square. That town only had 280,000 people. Think of small town America. Now, I know that sounds like a lot to some of you. I live in a city that's got 7 million in the city and surrounding areas. 280,000 sounds small to me. I'm thinking Alvin, Texas. It's about an hour south of me. It's a small town. It's where Nolan Ryan was born, or was from. If you don't know who Nolan Ryan is, I can't help you. Anyway, think of a small town. If you're from Texas, think of a small town like Alvin, Texas, getting wiped off the map in 22 days, and that's what you have in Chernihiv. It's pretty gross. Anyway, let's move on. I gave this story exactly the amount of attention it needs and deserves. 9:10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. We are in Washington, D.C., and an announcement was made that President Biden will talk by phone with President Xi Jinping Friday. And moving on. That's pretty much what I got from it. I'm like, who the fuck cares? Xi Jinping will just nod and say whatever you need to hear. And as soon as he puts down that phone, he's going to do the exact opposite of what he told you. So you are wasting your time trying to talk to him. If anything, you should just, that phone call should be quick and easy. I know what you're doing. I saw what your guy did about Ukraine yesterday, about how you're going to support. You're full of shit, and I'm on to you. And if you step out of line, I'll end you. Click. That's the way that phone call should go.
You're going to need a lot more stuttering and forgetting where you're at.
I didn't say Biden was going to make that call. I just said that's how that call should go. That's probably how that call would have went if an election wasn't stolen in 2020. Anyway, that's just tinfoil hat theory, right? Anyway. About an hour later, it is 9 o'clock my time. I'm finally getting out of bed because I should get my ass to work, right? But it's 4:08 p.m. in Moscow. You're going to love this, Scott. Yesterday I showed you a picture of 4 dead generals. And I once quoted General Keith Kellogg that nothing boosts the morale of your infantry faster than killing their infantry's generals. They've lost 4. Wait, sorry? No, they lost 5. Here he is. I did put a question mark there. What a strapping man, right? Yeah. He's being strapped in the gulag right now, actually. So here we go. 3 sources have told the investigative news website Bellingcat Thursday that General Roman Gavrilov, this guy, the deputy chief of Russia's Rosgvardia, sorry, I've never had to say that word before, has been detained by the Federal Security Service of the Russian Federation. He got arrested by his own. Yep. One source said Gavrilov was detained over, quote, leaks of military info that led to the loss of life, while 2 others say it was for, quote, wasteful squandering of fuel. Do you remember hearing the stories about the Russian convoy outside of Kyiv that by day 6 through 12 hadn't moved because there were reports that the soldiers were abandoning their vehicles or puncturing holes in the tanks, so they were stuck there because they didn't want to advance? You get the feeling that maybe this guy had something to do with that? I mean, wasteful squandering of fuel is a very specific charge. And the only story we were given about such an event was at that convoy. So, yeah, Russia will off its 5th general for Ukraine. How neat is that? Anyway, we salute you, General Worm Food, number 5. Anyway, moving right along. A couple minutes later, got a new one. You're gonna love this. There you go. I'm telling you, man, this guy is knocking it out of the park. If he is a speechwriter, that man needs like a Pulitzer Prize. Because Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky spoke to Germany's parliament Thursday and accused the country of putting its economy ahead of Ukraine's security in the lead up to the Russian invasion. When we asked for preventative measures, we noticed that you would delay things, that you wanted to continue doing economic things or business. This is Zelensky's reference to his ties, or their ties between Berlin and Moscow. Now remember, 65% of the energy that Germany uses comes from Russia, so it kind of explains it a bit. Anyway, and now the commercial routes between you and the aggressor country are a key element in the wall that separates Europe currently. He continues. The Ukrainian president called on Germany not to let a new wall divide Europe, urging support for his country's membership of NATO and the European Union. German nation, you are like behind the wall, a stronger one than your old Berlin Wall, the wall between freedom and loss of freedom, he said. This wall is getting stronger with every bomb falling on Ukrainian soil, with each important decision that is not taken by you. Zelensky also noted Germany's hesitancy when it came to imposing some of the toughest sanctions on Russia for fear that it could hurt the German economy. I want to say now to Chancellor Scholz, destroy this wall. Who else said that? Oh, that's right. Now he's Ronald Reagan, too. Give Germany the leadership that your descendants would be proud of. Zelensky said this while concluding his speech. Support us. Support each Ukrainian. Stop the war and help us stop it. This guy is a history stud. He, in a week, has brought out Churchill. He's brought out Martin Luther King, John F. Kennedy, who else? Ronald Reagan, Rudy Giuliani on September 12th, 2001. Like, this guy knows his history. He knows how to grab the attention of the nation he's speaking to. That's a rare quality. Like, this guy really is polished when it comes to being a world leader. And he's new to this job. And look what we have to deal with. A dopey old man who can't even, keep his rubber underwear clean, and a vice president with a big ass, a big mouth, and an empty head, with a really thick set of knee pads. Man, can we trade? Can we do like a 2-for-1? Can we just send those guys who stole all the vests from New York, and all the anti-gunners from California, and the president and the vice president, and trade for the president of Ukraine and all his people? Just swap? Would that be cool? Can we do that? I don't know. Just talking out of my ass. Moving on. Okay, here you go. You might recognize her. You might not. 6:15 p.m. Moscow. Yep. WNBA champion and 2-time Olympic gold medalist Brittany Griner. Didn't think I'd bring her up again, did you, Scott? Will continue to be held in Russia for at least 2 more months as an investigation into drug allegations continues. Russian news agency TASS reported Thursday that the court in Moscow has ruled that Griner will continue to be held in Russian custody until May 19th, pending an investigation into the circumstances that led to her arrest back in February. The WNBA star was arrested last month after officials said a search of her luggage luggage revealed vape cartridges containing oil derived from cannabis. Griner could face up to 10 years in prison if she's convicted. Question. How come the left isn't screaming racism when Russia detained her for something as petty as cannabis oil? Think about that for a second. Like, think if this was Alabama and they stop her at the airport and they throw her in jail for cannabis oil. You would have every single civil rights leader in arms. You would have, well, not the real civil rights leaders, the shill ones. They'd all be up in arms, right? You'd have Whoopi Goldberg on The View mooing like a mad cow in heat about how racist everybody is. Because that's all she does. That's all she knows. Like, she's just poisoned by this stupid ideology that racism is still a disease that we can't just cure by just, I don't know, stop teaching it to our kids. There's a thought. Like, people like her keep bringing it up. Kids have to start asking about it, and then they got to be taught it. There is no racism on an elementary school playground. I'm going to point that out right now. Anyway, she's not in Alabama or Alaska or anywhere in the United States. She's in Russia, and she got detained because she broke their law. The moral of the story is, don't take drugs to somebody else's country. Anyway.
And I'll point out that you definitely do not want to do that in Singapore.
That's a life sentence.
Because oh no, you can get the death penalty depending on the amount.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Yeah, they actually talked about that in those old locked up abroad stories.
Fuck around.
Philippines don't either, actually.
No, not with the current president.
That guy, I have a hard time trying to get a fix on him because, like, some of the stuff he does, I'm like, yeah, okay, and some of it's like, calm down, little Hitler. It's like, what the fuck? But yeah, I'm having a really hard time locking a beat on him. All right, so
he's a populist.
Yeah.
What's popular?
Okay, so my next picture here, this is where I start, poking fun and breaking the tension. I hope you understand. But here you go. That is a very specific person's mustache I put on there. You probably recognize it. And yeah, it's not my best work, but I just did that in a hurry. 6:15 p.m. So it's what? At about same time as the other story, because both of these came out at the same time. And this was called Putin's Done Lost His Mind and Invoked His Inner Stalin. Yeah. The assault on Mariupol has revealed the full extent of Russian President Vladimir Putin's determination to take Ukraine, as he claims that his country will undergo a natural and necessary self-purification of traitors. Sound like somebody to you? Did he just break Godwin's law? I think so. The Russian people will always be able to distinguish true patriots from scum and traitors and simply spit them out like a fly that accidentally flew into their mouths, Putin said Wednesday. I am convinced that such a natural and necessary self-purification of society will only strengthen our country, our solidarity, cohesion, and readiness to respond to any challenges. Putin compared the West to Nazi Germany and accused Russians who opposed the war of having a slave-like mentality. He labeled the conflict a struggle for our sovereignty, for the future of our country and our children. But a fresh crackdown on anti-war sentiment, including a criminal case against a popular lifestyle blogger, pales in comparison to the horrors in Mariupol, where the Russian military has appeared to overcome any hesitation about pulling its punches. Putin compared the West to Nazi Germany and accused Russians who opposed the war. I already wrote that, sorry. I cut and pasted that. My bad. Anyway, inner Stalin. That's why I did the mustache. I just thought you'd get a kick out of it. That was during his speech, too. I couldn't believe he had the audacity to say that. It blew my mind. Alright, let's move on. Now, this one is a story that's going to need more research, but at least I can confirm parts of it. So just bear with me here. Here's the photo. 8:20 p.m. Ukrainian time, 1:20 p.m. my time, local. The State Department said Thursday that an American citizen has been killed in Ukraine. Now, this isn't a journalist, this is just American citizen. We offer our sincerest condolences to the family on their loss, the spokesman interviewed reportedly had said. Earlier, police in the Chernihiv region said the occupiers once again carried out a heavy artillery attack on unarmed civilian residents in the city, and that there are dead and wounded people. Among the dead, a U.S. citizen. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken confirmed this an hour later during his press conference update at the Pentagon. No real details beyond that. So, Blinken actually did say he wasn't going to disclose the name out of respect for the family, but they'll tell you later. So, it's coming. We'll know probably in a day or two. I think Mad Sexy's starting to realize that I pull in the big fish in chat because he ain't seen the finest of apes in quite some time. I'm just kidding. Let me just deflate my head a little bit. I'm just funnin'. Alright, so my next story. You know, actually, we're getting through this pretty good, so we might actually finish this in a reasonable amount of time. Here's my next photo for you. This is Grafenwohr training area. My dad actually knows this spot. It's in Germany. Anyway, 3:23 p.m. Central Standard Time. This is now 10:23 Ukrainian time. This is like a post facto update, I think. I forgot to mark that as such, but there are officially 100,000 U.S. troops in Europe as of Thursday, as NATO increases its presence in the eastern flank and Russia's invasion of Ukraine enters its 4th week. This is day 22, so technically they're right. In a press conference alongside Germany's Minister of Foreign Affairs, NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg said that the number of American soldiers in Europe has increased by several thousands in the last several weeks. Stoltenberg said NATO has increased its deterrence and defense, especially in the eastern part of the alliance, with hundreds of thousands of troops on heightened alert. He also provided the same 100,000 figure for U.S. troops in Europe, and 40,000 of those troops are under direct NATO command during a press conference Wednesday with U.S. Secretary of Defense Lloyd J. Austin III. 40,000 of our guys answer to NATO right now, but the other 60,000, like these guys, training exercises, keeping their skills sharp, which I think is a good idea, actually. I mean, if you think about the kinds of conflicts we've been in recently, being in, like, the hills and woods, like actual woods like this, that's not something we've seen in a while, have we? We've seen desert, we've seen mountain, we've seen desert. Sorry. We've seen a lot of that, right? This is a little different. This is going to take some getting used to. So I think this is a good thing. They're doing the, acclimating exercises, I guess is a good way to put it, especially if some of these guys are veterans of the previous wars. This might be a good thing. Keep them sharp. 100,000 so far. Subject to another swell if things get crazy. Predictably. Moving on. It's about the same time, but I'm going to take you back to D.C. It's 4:25 in D.C., and the House has voted to suspend all normal trade relations with Russia and Belarus. The bill easily overcame the 2/3 threshold needed to pass with a vote of 424 to 8. Do any of you think that the 8 people who voted nay were all squad members? Like, I'm going to have to look into that. I'm really curious who the 8 commie scum are. I suspect they're the squad. President Biden pressed Congress to make the move, which allowed the U.S. to hike tariffs on Russian goods. You better get your Zenitco orders in right meow. Just telling you. The guy that I bought my Spetsnaz jacket and winter gear from, he's no longer on Etsy. They suspended his account yesterday. Dun,
I tried to
dun,
order that
dun.
OKP7, and yeah, I have nothing.
I had to send mine back.
Really?
Yeah, it completely came apart. Like, it was wrecked. And I emailed the guy, and he said, I will give you your money back, which he did, like, instantly, which I thought was really cool. And I printed the label this morning, and I sent it off this morning. And I gave him the tracking number back to him to say, you can track this. And I said, I'd really like to get another one from you someday. And he goes, I'll let you know when all this blows over. So, you know, he's
Fingers
a
crossed,
capitalist.
man.
The guy's a
Oh yeah, they
capitalist,
all
right?
are.
Yeah.
All
He's
the Russian dealers I've ever dealt with, they
mm,
don't give a shit about
yeah,
politics.
they just want to make money. They don't care about the politics of what's going on. So he was like, I'm
Yeah.
sorry what happened. He goes, I'll try to take care of you the next time. I said, okay, that's cool, whatever. No hard feelings. Same thing happened with my Sell Soviet Stuff order because I bought like the fatigues. Now, look, sidebar. I have a thing for Russian winter urban camo, that blue and gray and dark blue and black, that kind of. It's like
Yep.
almost like MacV Sog jungle tiger stripe camo, but with blues and blacks. So like I wanted that for years, and I finally had enough disposable income to buy it, so I bought all of it. I had to take all the patches off of it because I didn't want some Ukrainian to kick my ass if I was wearing the jacket out in public. So anyway, actually the jacket's just sitting in my closet because I can't wear it because I'm ashamed of it now. But I still like the pattern. You can't hate me for that.
I still have Russian patterns on my plate carrier.
I've got a what's it called? An Osprey? Yeah, British Osprey. Kind of like it. Not my color pattern, but I like it anyway. So let's move on. Sorry, didn't want to sidebar too long. About an hour later, and we're back to Ukraine. It's 11:27, and this guy is starting to turn into somebody that I could probably drink a beer with. Dmytro Kuleba, the minister, foreign minister. Yeah, Ukrainian Minister of Foreign Affairs. This guy does not pull his punches. If something pisses him off, you're going to know about it. Now, I'm going to preface this with a warning. If you don't like seeing dead children, just look away, because I'm about to show you one, and it's pretty disturbing. But I didn't post it, he did. And the reason he did is shocking. So here you go. By refusing to stop business activities in Russia, Nestle allows Russia's war of aggression in Europe to continue. Long-term damage to the company's reputation is proportionate to the scale of Russian war crimes in Ukraine, which is enormous. Not too late to change your mind. This is in his response when Nestle announced that they were not pulling out of Russia like everybody else. So he got kind of crazy with the photoshops, and this is what he's saying Nestle's basically doing. Their positioning and their position today. Everybody got an eyeful? You know, I always tell people, you can turn away from stuff like this, but it doesn't make it go away. It's just making you ignore the reality of how horrible humanity can be. I suspect after that tweet today, Nestle will probably change its mind. Just a thought. But yeah, you know, there's guys in the audience, there's women in the audience when Gunpowder Beauty's here. That probably would have struck a nerve. That probably would motivate some people to start sending some angry tweets to Nestle's way. You have my blessing. Go with God. Vaya con Dios. Have at it. Like, I think it's pretty shitty too. So, about an hour after that, I have a UK Defense Ministry update for you. So, I think my caption is different than what's actually in that picture. So I'll just go ahead and read you what I've got. The UK Ministry of Defense believes that the Russian military. Oh, sorry. This communique hit at 12:27 a.m. Friday Ukrainian time. So we're already touching into day 23, which is your clue that we're almost done. Hey, and we're actually making great time. The UK Ministry of Defense believes that the Russian military is having a difficult job maintaining their supply lines during the invasion of Ukraine. Logistical problems continue to beset Russia's faltering invasion. Reluctance to maneuver cross-country, lack of control of the air, and limited bridging capabilities because the Ukrainians have been blowing bridges. Remember we talked about that? They're going to blow the bridges.
Blowing up the bridging equipment, too.
Yes, but they're blowing the bridges just like they did for Stalingrad. They're preparing for a siege like Stalingrad. They are highly intelligent people, those Ukrainians. They are students of history. Their country was the step-off point for the Battle of Stalingrad. Of course they're going to fucking know this.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, lack of control of the air and limited bridging capabilities are preventing Russia from effectively resupplying their forward troops with even the basic essentials such as food and fuel. Incessant Ukrainian counterattacks, I love that. Incessant Ukrainian counterattacks are forcing Russia to divert large numbers of troops just to defend their supply lines. This is severely limiting Russia's offensive potential. This was UK Ministry of Defense. Now, the thing I like about this story is we're getting intel from a third party. Not ours, not Ukrainians, not Russians, which means you can sort of take that whole take the high, take the low, throw them out, and the truth is somewhere in the middle, right? These guys don't have a vested interest in bullshitting us. They're just seeing what they see and telling you what they see. And that's good. What this sort of supports, however, is the Pentagon's intelligence. I can't say that with a straight face. Sorry. The Pentagon's intelligence. God, I just can't finish that sentence, can I? Their brain trust, let me just put it that way, have estimated that if the Ukrainians can hold out for about 10 more days, the Russians will be starved of food and ammunition. Defections will run high. They'll start to abandon their gear. They might just surrender in droves, or they might just turn around and tuck tail and walk their happy ass back across the border to Russia. We don't know yet. The very alarming part of that statistic is if they're right, and if we've been listening to Putin's rants get more and more outlandish, I mean, come on, freaking ethnic cleansing. I mean, where the hell have we heard that last? You don't have to say it. I'm not going to break Godwin's law, but you know exactly what I'm talking about. What do you think he's going to do, first of all, to troops coming back across the border saying, we can't win this. We don't have no food or bullets. Do you remember what happened to Russian soldiers who retreated during the defense of Stalingrad? Where they ran forward into German MG-42s and then go, this is crazy, I'm going back. They turned around, they ran back, and then they were mowed down by Dushkas. Was it Dushkas? No.
No.
It was older than Dushkas. And PPSHs.
SG-43s and Maxims.
And DP-28s, right? They were mowed down by their own people. What do you think Putin's going to do to his own military who come across the border saying, we're starving and we got no bullets, we give up? The same thing. And then after that, he's going to be enraged with the people of Ukraine, and it's going to be vengeance war. It's going to be, I'm going to blow the reactors at Zaporizhzhia that I've lined with explosives. I'm going to crack that sarcophagus open in Chernobyl. I'm going to release chemical weapons all over the city of Kyiv and leave it a city of zombies. That's next. So maybe we don't want them to run out of bullets yet. I don't know. It's hard to say because we don't know how the other insane leader is going to react to it. That's the problem with a guy who doesn't leave the Duma and does like inspections in country in theater, making himself vulnerable. He's so paranoid that he doesn't leave. So you can't get him. Even think about it like this. Even if the Ukrainian people drive the Russians out of country, the war's only half over, isn't it? Even if you free Ukraine, the war's only half over because you cannot let him live anymore. You cannot let him exist anymore, and you can't leave him alone in the safety of Moscow. You have to go get him. How do you do that? The war's only half over. Think about that. You keep that in mind. Remember, I'm trying to just get you to think. You can leave comments. I read all the comments. Not very many people leave me comments. A lot of people PM me, and I'm really grateful for that. Like, I'm really glad you guys are enjoying this. But the only reason I do this is to provoke thought. I'm not trying to instigate war, though. Don't get me wrong. It's just, if I think it's coming, I'm going to mentally prepare for it, and then I'll start talking about it. I would say Putin is... Actually, no, I wouldn't. Mad Sexy. Putin is worse than Stalin, actually. He's far worse than Stalin. You see, the thing about Stalin is he was a dreamer and a madman. Putin is just a madman, and this war is his dying wish. And what makes him even more dangerous is he doesn't listen to anybody, and he has chemical and biological and nuclear weapons. He's far worse because everyone's scared of the Cold War boogeyman. Nobody was scared of Stalin. Nobody. Patton didn't give a shit about Stalin.
No, the only people that were afraid of Stalin were Stalin's own people.
Right. Exactly. Not even Nikita... Was it Nikita Khrushchev? Yeah. Not even
Yes.
Nikita Khrushchev crossed Stalin. He just waited until Stalin died and then moved right on in.
Yep.
Is he worse than Adolf? No. No. You see...
That's-
Or no, he is worse than Adolf. I'm sorry. He's far worse than Adolf Hitler. Now, I didn't think I was going to get into this discussion, but I wrote a dissertation one time, or I wrote a story one time for sociology, and it was called, Was Hitler Really That Bad of a Guy? And I know that's going to piss some people off, but just hear me out for a second. You were in a world war that your father's generation started for stupid reasons. You were punished by the Treaty of Versailles. You're forced into a restrictive recession. Your industry was crippled by sanctions and rules saying that you can't build weapons of war, yada, 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 right? You're a young Adolf Hitler in Germany, 1921 through 26, and you're seeing all your people suffer. You're young, you're impressionable, but you're still just a corporal. And you start to do... God damn it, I didn't want to say it like this. You start to do a public version of a podcast like I'm doing right now, and you start to get the people around you to think. And those people start going, you know what, he's right. And he starts growing in numbers, and he starts growing in size and influence and power. And then all of a sudden you get the beer hall push, and you get arrested. And while you're arrested, you're sitting in your jail cell, and you write a book about your struggles. And when you come out of jail, you start speaking to the public again. And you start telling them, why are you ashamed to be who you are? Why are we going to let the rest of the world tell us that we can't be great? We should build this country. We should be proud to be from our country. We should not be punished by the sins of our fathers in wars that we were children to. He brought back national pride, and he kick-started an entire nation's industry with just his words. Right up to that point, everything was fine. That would have made him a great leader. Unfortunately, he was also a madman because he was suffering from Parkinson's disease, and he had propagandists and sick, twisted people in his staff. Everything he did past making his country proud to be themselves, everything beyond that is atrocious because everything he had them build was with some twisted intent to wreak havoc on the world. So, just up to the point where he told you stop being ashamed of being who you are, that's where I cut off my paper. I was like, just up to here. Anything past this, I will never agree with. He was a madman twisted by disease and even sicker people feeding him lies and propaganda to twist him further. So, yeah, that's what I'm saying. What I'm saying about Putin is he's far worse. He's worse than that because he has never once empowered his own people to be great people, ever. He's only thought of one thing, himself and his legacy and his clutch of power with him and the guy Medvedev, not Navalny. Navalny's the good guy. Medvedev, the one that was president and then prime minister, and they kept trading back and forth. I think Medvedev is basically like his understudy. You know, a devil in a suit. He's worse. He's so much worse. Now, you can argue that yes, Hitler killed what, 7 million, 6 million Jews and a bunch of other people,
No,
right?
about 30 million.
Well, Hitler.
Yeah.
Stalin killed 26 or 24, 26 million of his own people during that war.
Hmm.
He's far worse. Putin's worse than that. He's not empowering his people. He's threatening to ethnically cleanse his own countrymen right now. I'm wondering if Putin is dying and making his one attempt. Okay, so that's what I was saying, that this war that he's doing is a dying man's wish. He's 70 years old. His best years are behind him. He's got a touch of something in his head going on because he's really, really aggressive right now. And some people now, I've done the med school thing. I've done the residency thing. I've worked with many departments and many physicians. So I got to like a sample. It was like going to a cafeteria. I got to sample the different fields of medicine. So when I heard this, I kind of took it, you know, with a little side eye. But I thought, you know what? They're not wrong. But basically, there's some people who think that based on the appearance of Putin's face lately and the swollen, puffy appearance, plus his sort of outlandish behavior, that he may have some sort of form of lymphatic cancer and that he's not saying it to anybody and telling anybody. And apparently, he doesn't have a personal physician that has a mouth that leaks. So it's possible that he has some terminal thing and he wants to see his 1961 Cold War vision back because that'll be the legacy he leaves on the world. Because, I mean, let's face the facts. The average Russian male lives to 72. He's 69 going on 70, Mad Sexy. He's close to 70. He's closer to 70 than he is from 69. 69 is in the rearview mirror. Just like me. I'm 42. I'll be 43 in like 3 weeks. So, like, 42 is way in the rearview mirror, right? He's kind of the same way with 69 and 70. But think about it like this. He's sort of doing right now what Joe Biden's doing right now. He's trying to implement some mad policy that's going to infect generations long after he's dead. He won't be around to see what happened. It's almost like when Adolf Hitler was trying to build like the ultimate, you know, Berlin with oh shit, I forgot the guy's name. See?
Spear.
Yes, thank you, with Albert Speer. You know, he was supposed to build like the Grand Dome and everything.
Mhm.
Hitler would have never lived to see that completed. The construction of it would have took more than his lifetime, you know? But he had these grandiose plans. And that's the thing with failed leaders. They always have grandiose plans that they never ever get to see to fruition because it's so outlandish and he can't gain enough people's support to make it happen. Like, I think the last person that had some outlandish vision that actually got finished in time was the guy who built the Taj Mahal for his wife. That's probably the last guy. I don't know how he pulled it off. It's amazing, though. It's one of the 7 wonders of the world, right? let's move on. Sorry, I didn't really want to go that far into tangents, but I hope I answered your question a little bit. Now you got a little bit of my idea of the psychology of madmen. I just hope nukes don't fly and Ukraine wins. I'm going to admit something to you. Do you remember the tactical nuke in Starship Troopers? Little shape charge cone looking thing that you put on what looked like a basic RPG 7 and it just flies and it hits a brain bug in the face and right? Tactical nuke.
Yeah.
Actually it wasn't the brain bug, it was the other bug. Anyway, point is, apparently those are a reality. Maybe slightly bigger than that one, but when they started talking about tactical nukes in this conflict, like that was news to me. Like small scale tactical nukes. I'm just like, huh, that's a thing? So maybe power armor really isn't that far away. Maybe I will get a nuke grenade in 2041. I don't know. We'll see. Look, T-51 power armor, I'm happy. I'll keep my regular conventional guns. I just want the power armor. Because I got arthritis in my knees, and that'll help me walk. See? Prosthetic device. Just like the brace. Okay, let's move on. I think I've got 2 stories left for you, and then I'll let you all go. Man, take a deep breath. Okay, 6:32. I'm home from work now. Weather was shitty. I didn't know the smaller ones were. I just thought they were all big ones. All right, so it's 1:32 a.m. Friday, Moscow. I've got a picture for you. You're probably going to like this one because, you know, it makes fun of that little shit again. This one right here. Yeah. So, Friday, Moscow, post facto. In a Thursday conversation with Turkish President Recep Erdogan, Russian President Vladimir Putin reportedly outlined the conditions that would need to be met in order for him to end his invasion of Ukraine. So let me get this straight. He calls the Turkish president and he's like, say, bro, we need to talk. And the president of Turkey's like, you're kind of on my shit list. This better be good. And Putin's like, I'm going to admit something to you. I could have did this in accents, but I just want to get the point across because doing the accent thing takes a while. Anyway, he says, no, it's serious. I need to talk to you. So he's like, okay, I'm all ears, bro. Go ahead, lay it on me. And he goes, this isn't going my way. But I need an off-ramp. I need to look good doing this. Somehow. I need to save face. So, Erdogan's like, okay. So this is what he comes up with. He goes, I'm going to tell you what I need to have happen. Keep this on the low, but I need this to happen. And then I will pull out of Ukraine. So now he's got his attention, right? He's like, go on. According to a BBC report, a Turkish official who listened in on the call, that's got to be a death penalty offense, right? Between the two leaders, said that Putin would end his invasion if several conditions are met, including a promise that Ukraine will remain neutral and not join NATO. Erdogan's leading advisor and spokesman, Ibrahim Kalin, said that Russia is also calling for Ukraine to undergo a disarmament process to mitigate threats to Russia in the future, as well as legal protections for the Russian language in Ukraine. Okay. I was going to not do this, but okay.
I just want to know what the hell they're smoking.
You disarmed your nuclear weapons to join NATO. Now I need you to disarm everything else. No weapons, Ukraine. Okay? You do this, we bros. Okay? Also, you keep my language in your country. We cool? Okay, broski. Right? No. Fuck that. So, additionally, Putin reportedly desires promises related to the denazification of Ukraine. Can this motherfucker stop saying that shit? Really? Please? The president in Ukraine is a Jew. You sound like such an idiot when you say denazification of Ukraine. Just shut the fuck up. Putin, according to the report, is also asking for face-to-face negotiations with Ukraine's president, Vladimir Zelensky, to hammer out his demands, which Zelensky previously said he was never opposed to. Kalin said that there are other conditions Putin listed that he did not go into too much detail about, but he believes they will involve territories that have broken away from Ukraine in the eastern Donbas region. You mean like the ones that Uzbekistan said they will never recognize? Yeah, that's not working out for you, is it? The report states that it is assumed Putin will ask Ukraine to give up the territory in the east and formally recognize that Crimea, which Russia illegally annexed in 2014, is a part of Russia. The demands are in line with previous reporting that stated Putin has told Ukrainian officials he will end his invasion if 6 major conditions are met. Now you know why I got that picture up there. Now it all makes sense to you, doesn't it? Mm-hmm. So, he wants to keep Crimea. He basically wants everything in the red on that map. Let's just say it that way. He wants those. Which would be like carving out the states of Oklahoma, Louisiana, and Arkansas. And that's about it, really. Away from Texas. Not gonna happen, broski. I don't think so. I think you know what I think? I think what's gonna happen is he's gonna kick your Slav ass back across the border, and then he's gonna promise that someone is gonna get you. And he's gonna take back all his country, including his Crimea. And he's gonna offer any Russian separatist a choice. Put your head down and swear your allegiance to this country, or get the fuck out of it. And I think he'd be well within his rights to do so. And we say good evening to Ellie Mae Hatfield, who's always fashionably early for the next episode the day before it. Anyway. Alright, so I got one last story for you, I believe. Yes, I sure do. And it was that picture I sort of hinted to you earlier. I called it Fallout Moscow. This one here. I think that's Moscow University in the background, by the way. 7:19 Central Time, 8:19 Eastern Time. This was the last story I did before we went on air. U.S. intelligence officials believe that Vladimir Putin may threaten to unleash his nuclear arsenal, increasingly, as Ukrainian defense forces continue to thwart his invasion of their country. Lieutenant General Scott Barrier, director of the U.S. Defense Intelligence Agency, revealed the concerns in a new report on global threats, dated March 15th, and obtained today. As this war and its consequences slowly weaken Russian conventional strength, Russia likely will increasingly rely on its nuclear deterrent to signal the West and project strength to its internal and external audiences. Yeah. U.S. officials believe Putin intends to overturn the U.S.-led rules-based post-Cold War international order. Yeah. And reclaim Soviet former territories. Like I said, 1961 map. Russia views a powerful, survivable nuclear force as the foundation of its national security, and its modernized general-purpose forces as critical to meet any conventional military threat and project Russian power abroad, Barrier wrote. Additionally, Russian forces are using indiscriminate methods of attack that are leveling cities, killing civilians, and damaging infrastructure in retaliation for Ukraine's effective resistance, according to the report. The DIA is also called into question Putin's credibility on his claims to have modernized the Russian military. Russia's modernization is intended to ensure Russia can field a military capable of engaging in the full spectrum of warfare to deter or defeat a wide scope of threats. but initial setbacks in Ukraine call some of Putin's narrative into question. At the same time, Russia claims that it has updated more than 85% of its nuclear weapons and is working on developing missiles that are capable of circumventing Western defenses in order to ensure that Russia can credibly inflict unacceptable damage on the West. What unbelievable propagandist bullshit. You have brought all your junk into that country, Ukraine, and it has been laid waste to. You had a T-14 main battle tank, the Armada, and you can't build enough of them to make a difference, so you're fielding your old garbage, T-72s and recycled T-90s, which, if HVS was here, would be really happy that I mentioned that, because he loves talking about how easy T-90s explode. Most of the pictures we've been showing you for the last 22 days show them with their lid blown off, the turret laying in a field several hundred yards away. So he would be correct. They have T-92s also, but apparently not enough of them to make a difference. They have BMT-21s with 30mm cannons, but today, around Kyiv, they backed off and dug in. They hulled down all their BMPs. For those of you who don't know armored warfare, hulled down is where you dig a hole or you pull up to a berm, and the only thing that can be exposed in front of you is your gun barrel and part of your turret, because you need the optics of the periscope to actually work the gun. He dug in BMPs. He's sitting still because he doesn't know what to do next. He has made his tanks and BMPs sitting ducks now because they're stuck in holes. And what did we just give a ton of to the Ukrainian military? Javelins, Panzerfaust 3s, Stinger missiles. Oh, that's right, Sling Blade UAV drones that are made to attack like a javelin does, right on top of your turret. And when you're dug in and hulled down, you got nowhere to go. And these little sling blades, they're deadly little fuckers. You launch them out of a mortar tube. That's how small they are. And they'll still knock out a tank. That's how effective they are. And we just sent them 100 of those. Probably not the last time we're going to send those either. So anyway,
There's probably a plane load of them.
Fine Ape
On
is
the
on
way.
2x speed to try and catch up, so he's probably listening to this in like squirrel vision. Anyway. Yeah, the autoloaders do get hit because they don't have wet ammo racks. You're right. But that's all I've got for you. I mean, unless you've picked up any stories since. I mean, I can check if there were any updates right quick.
Just the Russian people have already started fighting amongst themselves for sugar at the local grocery stores because they are already running out of supplies in Russia.
Oh, now that is a story that warms the cockles of my heart right here. So, you may have remembered this. I guess this will be the last thing I've got for you because I have to share it. I think it's pretty cool. And we'll build off of this starting tomorrow. But we were talking about how we can get involved without getting involved. General Kellogg said it. Actually, a couple generals that said this. The only way we can get involved without being involved is through covert ops. The only people who we discuss covert ops with is the CIA. Well, wouldn't you know it? 40 minutes ago, a former CIA intelligence officer blew the whistle on what's been going on. And basically he said, no, the CIA's been secretly training the Ukrainians for years. Anyway. So,
yeah, it was common knowledge, though.
Yeah, I just think that, people just needed to hear it because we heard the word covert ops for the longest time and nobody ever asked, well, what the hell are we doing? Well, here's a clue. You don't telegraph your intentions on national and global TV, first of all, And you certainly don't telegraph your covert ops until they're post facto. So of course we're not going to know what they are. But it's cool that we finally have some indication that, yes, they have been done. Or still being done. And with that, I think I'm going to play this. We didn't make it quite to 2 hours, and I'm not going to stretch out this outro for 5 minutes. So I'm going to let you guys off the hook a little early tonight. Anyway, if you're new to my channel, welcome. If you're a regular here, welcome back. Either way, check out my other playlists and see if my other interests might be of interest to you. If you'd like to be a part of my server, there's a link in the description below. If you'd like to join the show, it's also in the link in the description below. Or you can just email me and tell me what you think. Maybe you can like, maybe you can share, maybe you can tell other people that we're doing this. Or if you haven't subscribed yet, maybe hit that button too. Anyway, I want to thank you, the audience, for being here, and you, my panelists, for putting up with me this long. This was The War Room, Day 22. We will be back tomorrow. Slava Ukraini, and good night.